The film opens by showing a teenager named Akai who has just been admitted to a juvenile detention center for a robbery case. As soon as he logs in, Akai immediately meets another inmate named Ikuto. He assumes Ikuto has just arrived as well, so he boldly introduces himself. But when he asks what case Ikuto is in for, Ikuto replies that he committed every crime Akai mentions. A few moments later, they are approached by another inmate with a worn-out face. This prisoner is only 18 years old and still a student. However, not knowing his background, Akai immediately assumes he's an older man who ended up in the wrong prison. As a result, the inmate instantly loses his temper. Unexpectedly, Ikuto knocks him out with a single punch. Judged to be causing trouble, Ikuto is immediately dragged by a long-haired guard into the isolation room. The plot twist is that Ikuto isn't a new inmate at all. He's actually a long-time prisoner who already rules the detention center. This isn't the first time he's been put in isolation, since he has previously knocked out several other inmates. Ikuto's overwhelming strength makes the long-haired guard dislike him. He seems to hold a personal grudge against Ikuto and treats him unfairly. Not only that, he even causes trouble when Ikuto is declared eligible for parole soon, going as far as bringing up Ikuto's father, who is now also in prison.
Because of that incident, Akai and Ikuto grow closer. The two of them regularly go through the prison schedule together, from daily routines to rehabilitation activities. Then one day, the detention center receives a visitor named Asakura. He is a former inmate who comes to give a motivational talk. Asakura has managed to turn his life around and become a better person. According to the information given, he used to be a ruthless gangster who showed no mercy. After leaving prison, he founded a martial arts event called Breaking Down, an arena that offers brutal fighting experiences, while also opening a path for anyone who wants to become a professional fighter. Inspired by Asakura's motivation, Akai and Ikuto begin to take an interest in the world of fighting. From that moment on, their daily lives are filled with exercise and physical training. They do everything to chase the same dream, becoming professional fighters. Feeling that they have grown close, Ikuto opens up about why he ended up in the detention center. He says he was accused of robbery simply because he was wearing a jacket with the same color as the real culprit. Akai falls silent when he hears this, because the robber Ikuto is talking about is none other than Akai himself. Now Akai becomes nervous and guilt-ridden. What if Ikuto finds out that it was Akai who caused him to be imprisoned? Long story short, Ikuto is finally released after spending about a year and a half in detention. He's picked up by his mother and Akai, who had already been granted parole earlier. Before going home, they stop by another prison to visit Ikuto's father. During the 5 years his father has been serving his sentence, Ikuto never visited him because he resented him. There, it is revealed that Ikuto's father was imprisoned after being falsely accused of murder. At the time, he received a call from an employee who was venting and said he wanted to end his life. Worried, he immediately went to the employee's house. Unfortunately, he arrived too late, as the employee was already dead. And because he happened to be at the scene, Ikuto's father was immediately treated as the main suspect. The prosecutor pressured him to confess, but the father refused because he didn't want to be labeled a murderer. He chose to stand by his belief that one day the truth would come out, even if he had to wait for a long time behind bars. Having learned from his own experience of being falsely accused, Ikuto believes that his father is not a criminal. The next day, Akai and Ikuto are seen working at a welding factory. Here, Akai looks lazy because in his opinion, it's better to sleep and be unemployed while still having plenty of money. However, since they need the cash, they keep working, even if somewhat reluctantly. During their break time, they're approached by a group of gang members led by a young man named Jun.
It turns out that Jun once went to the same school as Ikuto and has held a grudge ever since. Back in their school days, Ikuto was known as the strongest and most feared person around. He could even take down an entire group of gangsters with his signature knockout punch. Here, Jun warns Ikuto not to show himself in that area if he doesn't want to get into serious trouble. After his encounter with Ikuto, Jun and his crew hang out at a bar owned by the long-haired man. There, one of Jun's subordinates, an arrogant guy named Abaken who thinks he's the toughest, wants to prove himself. He plans to beat up Ikuto on his own, to show that their gang is unbeatable. However, one of his friends says that's impossible, considering Abaken used to be Ikuto's punching bag in the past. In the middle of the tension, another flashy-looking guy named Bwambang appears. He is known as one of the strongest people around the bar. Bwambang doesn't like Abeken's loud and arrogant attitude. The atmosphere quickly heats up, and eventually they start fighting. The fight is immediately stopped by the bar owner, and interestingly, they all fall silent because the owner turns out to be a former Yakuza member. He then suggests that Jun and his crew channel their energy into the Breaking Down tournament instead of causing trouble and disturbing the locals. After seeing the tournament brochure, Jun is reminded of his past with a woman. Meanwhile, on the other side, Ikuto and Akai, who have just finished work, head straight to a boxing gym. There, they see a fairly tough amateur boxer. Curious, Ikuto immediately challenges him to a one-on-one match in the ring. He also wants to test how strong his opponent really is. His request is soon granted by the coach, who is also the owner of the gym. However, since Ikuto has only been relying on video tutorials, he is briefly overwhelmed by the boxer, whose technique is much more refined. Even so, just as his opponent starts to gain the upper hand, Ikuto seizes the moment to turn the situation around. After winning the fight, Ikuto becomes interested in training regularly at the gym, but nothing comes for free these days, so Akai and Ikuto become more motivated to work in order to pay for the training. After work, they routinely go to the boxing gym to practice. To make their struggle more meaningful, the two of them also ask for their mother's blessings to join the Breaking Down auditions. The support comes, especially from Akai's mother, who keeps praying for her son's success, as long as the path he chooses doesn't lead him into a world that could harm himself or others. One day after work, Akai arrives at the boxing gym and is surprised to find two of his school friends there. One of them is named Yuki, an influencer with hundreds of thousands of followers. As one of her followers, Akai approaches her, but it seems Yuki is more interested in Ikuto, who appears cooler. From that meeting, it is revealed that Yuki is the younger sister of the boxer who previously fought Ikuto. However, the calm atmosphere doesn't last long, as they are soon visited by uninvited guests, Jun and his crew. To avoid a brawl, the gym owner suggests that the problem be settled honorably in the ring. The proposal is accepted, and Bwambang volunteers to face Ikuto. Hearing this, Akai suddenly steps forward as well, driven by a strong determination. Unfortunately, Akai is overwhelmed by Bwambang, whose fighting skills are far superior to his.
But in the middle of the fight, Akai remembers his reason for facing Bwambang. He wants revenge because Bwambang is the one who caused him to end up in prison. In the past, Akai was often bullied and extorted by Bwambang, which forced him to commit robbery. Now, Akai wants to prove that he is no longer a weak kid.
But unexpectedly, Akai is once again overwhelmed by Bwambang, who keeps throwing relentless punches. Even so, Akai refuses to give up. He gets back on his feet after remembering the suffering he once endured and the pressure that forced him to choose the wrong path. Those memories become the fuel that keeps him standing. Now it's Ikuto's turn to step up and face Jun. This time the fight is much more intense as both of them are equally strong. The physical clash turns brutal and evenly matched until the fight has to be stopped because Yuki can't bear to see Jun all beaten up. After Jun and his crew leave, Yuki reveals that Jun is actually her ex-boyfriend. According to her, even though Jun was good at fighting, he wasn't that brutal in the past. He was actually more timid and shy. However, after being expelled from school, Jun slowly changed because of his environment, especially since people around him judged him harshly just because he was the son of a former Yakuza boss. After hearing Yuki's story, Ikuto shares his thoughts. According to him, Jun can still be saved from the dark world of gang life. Long story short, Akai and Ikuto pass the administrative selection and then head to the breaking down office for the next stage. In the middle of the tense atmosphere, they're approached by another participant named Joy. He suddenly wants to talk about something related to Ikuto's father, but the conversation is cut short when all the participants are asked to gather for the next phase of the selection. Here, those who pass are invited to introduce themselves in front of the judges. When it's Ikuto's turn, he explains to Asakura, the head judge, that his reason for joining the tournament isn't just about his career, but also because he wants to meet Asakura in person, the man who changed the way Ikuto sees life. This is different from Akai, who has intended from the start to walk the path of a professional fighter. There, Joy also introduces himself. It turns out he is a law student and the son of a prosecutor. The problem is that prosecutor is the one responsible for putting Ikuto's father behind bars. Since fate has brought them together in this place, Joy intends to settle the conflict in the ring, as if the issues of their parents can be paid off through a physical fight between their sons. At that time, Jun and Bwambang are in a quiet area to meet Yuki. Not wanting to interrupt their conversation, Yuki's friend then takes Bwambang somewhere else. There, Jun finally expresses his regret over the decision he made in the past, which ended their relationship without any clear reason. Yuki, who never considered the incident a deep wound, forgives him because it turns out she still has feelings for Jun. She also tells him about Ikuto's perspective, which makes her want to help bring Jun back onto the right path. The peaceful moment doesn't last long. They are suddenly approached by a group of biker gang members. With smug expressions, they start teasing Yuki, which immediately makes Jun furious. Jun collapses after his head is struck. He is then forcibly taken to the biker gang's headquarters. Yuki immediately goes to seek help from Bombang, but when Bombang sees who took his boss, he realizes that the place is the territory of a biker gang called Krishna. Not wanting to die for nothing, Bombang quickly calls his friends for help, but no one answers his calls. Left with no choice, Bombang goes to Akai and Ikuto to ask for their help.
But since they are scheduled to take part in the Breaking Down tournament that night, Akai chooses to refuse the request. To him, there is something far more important than saving his longtime enemy, especially when the opponent is the most dangerous gang in the city. However, Ikuto feels he won't be at peace if he leaves someone in trouble. This attitude eventually makes Akai change his mind and decide to go along, even though his heart isn't fully in it.
Meanwhile, at the Krishna gang's headquarters, their leader is actually disappointed with his subordinates. In his view, kidnapping Jun is a childish act that doesn't reflect the dignity of a true gangster. Because of that, he punishes his own men while waiting for Jun's friends, whom he is certain will come.
When Ikuto, Akai, and Bombang arrive at the location, they immediately come up with a plan to fight the Krishna gang. If they don't come out within 10 minutes, Yuki will call the police. With sky-high confidence, they charge in recklessly, beating up anyone who stands in their way. Four men are taken down. Now in their minds, all that's left is to find Jun and escape. But reality isn't that simple. Ikuto and his two teammates suddenly freeze when they realize their opponents are far more numerous, around 60 people. Even so, they still push forward, driven by pure determination.
Just as the situation grows more desperate and Ikuto is finally taken down, suddenly,
it turns out that Jun's subordinates show up along with a group of Yakuza members who are under his father's command. In an instant, the situation flips from being on the verge of defeat to a full-scale counterattack. Meanwhile, their boss, who had been sitting calmly the whole time, finally decides to step in himself. One by one, Jun's men are beaten down by him with ease, as if he were swatting mosquitoes. Then, when Ikuto finally comes face to face with the boss of the Krishna biker gang, everyone at the scene suddenly falls silent. All of them want to know who will go down first. The fight turns intense, and Ikuto is truly overwhelmed because his opponent is clearly no pushover. Even so, despite his injured right hand and leg, he steels his resolve and keeps going. In the end, with a deadly punch and kick, Ikuto manages to overwhelm the boss of the Krishna gang and knock him unconscious. After the incident, Jun, who never expected Ikuto to come and save him, immediately thanks him. He also apologizes for his behavior in the past, and in the end, those who were once enemies finally make peace. After Ikuto and his friends leave, the boss of the Krishna gang wakes up. It turns out he was only pretending to be knocked out because he was impressed by Ikuto's determination. He wants to see how far the young man can go and whether his resolve is truly as strong as his punches. Meanwhile, on the other side, Jun and his crew take Ikuto to the Breaking Down tournament venue. Once they arrive, Ikuto pleads with the organizers to allow Akai to fight in his place, since his condition is no longer suitable for stepping into the ring. After the organizers consult with Asakura, the request is finally approved. Just before the match, Akai confesses to Ikuto that he was the robber who caused Ikuto to end up in juvenile detention. But unexpectedly, Ikuto isn't angry at all. The plot twist is that he has known the truth for a long time and chose to let it go. As a form of redemption, Ikuto asks Akai to fight with everything he has in this match. Relieved, Akai is finally able to step into the ring with a calm mind. And with that, the match finally begins. The end.